after we did the training, after they started recognize it isn't about me being hyper-focused on you and doing person-centered care. It's actually about us. It's relationship-based care. And when I talk about that, the difference becomes important. The program that we teach teaches us how it is you and I get connected. Because at the end of the day, when we're talking about hands-on care, the amount of connection we're going to have to help you feel safe enough that this person that she seems kind of nice, but I kind of feel like I just met her, because many of our dementias are dealing with memory loss. Some are not. How it is I help you know in every second, in everything I do, say, show, and help your brain feel from my brain is that we're going to do this together and nothing is without your permission. Because guess what? We're going to do really weird stuff.
Hey everyone, Kevin Hansen here again with another discussion in Create to Connect. A lot of you in the home care, home health, home hospice world work with families battling and struggling with dementia and Alzheimer's and other forms, like even Parkinson's dementia. And there's a lot that goes with that. And a lot of businesses struggle and some succeed in that world in helping families and creating a real good discussion around that to give the families and the people struggling with dementia confidence in you as a brand, as a home care, home health, hospice business. It's something that's touched me personally, and I'll talk about that briefly as we have this discussion here today. But if you think about dementia care, there's a few influencers out there, but one I've known of for a while is Teepa Snow. And today we've got a great member of her team. We've got Dr. Beth Nolan with us. She has agreed to visit with me, and this is a conversation that's supposed to happen a while ago, but life interrupted. My mom passed away with dementia. And as much as I love being raw with my audience and having those moments with my audience and being honest and have those feelings in there, it was 3 days before my mom's funeral. So we didn't go forward with that. I canceled and she was gracious to give me that time. And then we're able to reschedule here today. So I want to bring Beth in and have this conversation. Beth, if you could just briefly for the audience share just your time with Teepa Snow and just the work that you do there, what your role is there. And then we'll get into some questions that help home care owners, hospice owners understand how they can create a better brand experience through a program like the Snow approach.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Kevin. And I think it's completely appropriate to pause. What an incredible self-awareness moment. And I think that's probably hard gained. I mean, that self-awareness to recognize that's a very busy time. So thank you for having me. And I'm glad you paused. So yeah, I've been working with Teepa for about 15 years now. And I had this silly idea from this wonderful professor that I worked with in grad school that, he had taken me, I was doing work with him, and he had taken me into a series, what they called back in the 90s, those special care units. And I was watching at the time, the theory was, and it was taught across the board, was that people living with dementia, and specifically they'd only use the word Alzheimer's because, no, there isn't 220 different forms as it causes. We all just talked about it as one little thing called Alzheimer's. And one of the things they talked about again and again was that the hippocampus is one of the areas that's gravely affected. Now, if you know anything about the hippocampus, and I'm kind of like diving right into the neurology, but the hippocampus is part of your limbic system, and it's part of the system that actually takes in new memory and helps you learn and remember new things. So it makes sense that if you see this part of the brain actually shrinking on a scan, that you would presume that people living with dementia can't learn. Well, I don't know if anybody of you out there listening and someone moves into residential living with you, or you're going into their home and you realize they're in a new home, or any sort of person you've ever interacted with living with dementia, tell me they do not learn. It is truly about humanity. And so I had this stupid idea that people living with dementia could learn. Watching and going into special care units, and everybody knew exactly where their seat was in the lunch table. In the dining area, you knew exactly where your seat was. How is this not learning? I was baffled as a young professional thinking, well, that doesn't make sense. But I held on to that truth. And I think it's what eventually got me to Teepa. With this one little silly idea that I thought that maybe we were wrong as a collective series of professionals and researchers and providers. And when I met Teepa, I recognize the neurological truth in it.
Mhm.
That people living with dementia, what we say in PAC is, I am who I am. I am who I've always been, but I am changing. And the reality is that till the last breath I breathe on this earth, I am who I am. I am who I've always been. But yet all of us are changing. It's
Mhm.
just in ways with dementia that makes it really challenging for those of us who are not living with dementia, and also some of my friends living with dementia, to find the ways to capitalize on what is retained. That's
Mhm.
the part that Teepa's program makes a difference on. What's retained is what I can use.
Well, and even with my mom, while she was actively forgetting, she was relearning,
Oh,
and most
yeah.
of that relearning was more through patterns because the retention was tougher, but patterns were able to help hold her to that consistency better. So it was more subliminal learning rather
Yeah.
than active learning, but it's just a
Still
way of
there.
adjusting the learning model there. And having the hardest thing was having our whole family adjust around that new style of learning too. Uh,
Yes. I had to
so
experience, I have to use all of my senses maybe to learn. Because you're right. I mean, the hippocampus is definitely changing. And the funny thing is too, it's like it depends on the type of dementia. And it sounds like for your mom, it wasn't just dementia, but other chronic illnesses on board
yeah.
that can sort of cloud this. And I don't know how many of us can get to any age because we know that our risk of dementia increases as we age. So, yes, we are more likely to see people who are not 20. We do see some or
Hmm.
younger pediatric dementias. But the reality is that chances are, like over a certain age, we all got something else going on with our bodies. And it's just not so simple, is it? So, yeah,
Yeah.
it
It's
really
not.
does interfere with all that learning sometimes.
It's not. It's not always that simple. And one of the biggest things that we try and do here, for those that have been watching some of these episodes, is have a conversation around how these stories that come from positive outcomes experiences can help elevate the brand experience of a business.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people approach it technically. I know you have some incredible courses. I've worked with many home care businesses and several that, as I was going through my own journey with my mom, that reached out to me and would offer me Teepa snow tips basically and say, hey, here's something that we teach people. Have you tried this with your mom? And there's other influencers too, but yours stood out. It was one that, as I was going through that, I need to have this conversation with someone from Teepa Snow, right? And help businesses understand how this changes. A lot of people struggle with what to put down about dementia in their content. A lot of
Mhm.
people struggle to even approach it properly to have those positive stories and outcomes. And something I try and help home care owners understand and hospice owners and health owners understand is those stories will convey much more what you're capable of accomplishing through your compassion than a list of technical what's in home care, home health, hospice.
Absolutely.
And so as you've worked with businesses over the last 15 years now, and with Teepa Snow, and you've done things, I want to ask some questions about how that's impacted different categories. And I love how your website already separated those. You have
Mhm.
the professional, you have the organization, you have the individual
Yeah.
struggling with dementia, and you have the family. And in each of those, whether you're thinking about that or not right now, there is a brand experience story. And understanding how a program like the Snow Approach can help you and how you can watch for stories to come from that and utilize that in your website content, your social media
Yeah.
content will really separate you as a business. So let's start with the professionals
Yeah.
because that's where your website starts. So we'll kind of go through those
Right.
with a professional from home care aide, caregiver to hospice nurse, like all those professionals. How have you seen the Snow approach and things that you've coached on? How have you seen that better equip, elevate the skill levels of,
Mhm.
and reduce that individual stress of the care professional as they utilize these resources that you provide them?
Yeah, I think it's such a great question because there's kind of, I think of it in two different ways. There is the aspect about the skills, and I'll get to those in a second. But I think it comes down to as professionals, we have a little bit of an advantage, right?
Mhm.
So as I think about my own parents and their changing brains, the reality is that as a family member, I mean, I do this for a living. I travel around the world and are able to, meet all these people living with brain change, meet all these professionals. But at the end of the day, my mom is still my mom.
Mhm.
And I hear this as well with spouses. This is probably even harder, I think, from spouse to spouse, right? My fill in the blank is still my fill in the blank. And there is so much history,
Mhm.
and there's things that I can do and get away with. as a professional, as a stranger, that people aren't reading into it, right? So, for example, I don't have the expectation that my mom will do whatever
Mhm.
if I am that professional. All I see is my client that deserves love, respect, gentle hands, guidance through living and finding purpose and meaning in this journey and this part in their life. And I have many times the ability to let go easier of what my expectations were, of what my respect and where I gained all this understanding of who this person is. It just is at this moment. I have an easier time many times as a professional versus my families being truly in the moment and actually seeing those positive moments.
Mhm.
So how can we as professionals, the skills have got to be there, right? I have to actually know and understand. And we'll get to those, like I said, in a second. But how can I demonstrate in communication and those first conversations with families that the reality is that I see you, family member. I see what you're struggling with. I'm hearing you. I'm reflecting what you're saying. I'm getting to know you and figuring out what your unmet needs are. At the other side of it, I can say, and we can be there with you
Mhm.
for your loved one, for your person. Because I will say this, not everyone who's bringing a family member, and y'all know this, the minute I say this, you're all going to know this. Not everyone who's bringing a family member would they also refer to them as their loved one. One of the most powerful moments I had as a professional in a long-term care unit was I was called in for a consultation and meeting with this man. And he was a strong guy, emotionally, personality wise. He was a big guy in every sense of the word. And he was definitely like, we had to make sure we were connected and we got going, we got staff some ideas. And as I was leaving, the daughter who was there the whole time, relatively quiet, pulled me aside afterwards and she said, I just want to let you know that I really appreciate what you're able to do for my father.
Huh.
And I said, absolutely. He's a real character. He's a real interesting, complex guy, isn't he? And she said, yes, he is. And she said, and I just want you to know that I very much appreciate what you have done for the staff because every human being deserves to have respectful hands laid on them.
Mhm.
I couldn't do that for my father because he was the man who did not lay hands on me the right way.
Oh, man.
And I'm realizing what she's saying, that he was her abuser.
Mhm.
And in spite of this, this woman stepped up and found someone who could care for her father, not because she felt he deserved it, but because every human being deserves this.
Mhm.
And I think in that moment, recognizing when I share the joys that I'm able to find with my friends or my clients that are living with dementia, how I present those joys and help the families see what's possible is going to be individual for some families. I may not be able to see the fact that my father, my mother can eat the oatmeal again that I was struggling to have her eat with a semi-solid food. I
Mhm.
may not see that as a positive. You can, professional. And how I present that is the way that we can start to communicate the stories and the way that we are the right place for your parent and the right support.
Absolutely. I know that a lot of people in home care, because there's so much turnover that happens here, a lot of people that we consider the home care professional are new on the job. In fact, one of the caregivers for my mom was a trainee, but she had incredible innate skills in just dealing with people, like very innately compassionate and very aware. So those skills like transcended her lacking in
Yep.
other areas. But she picked up quick. She learned quick. But having something consistent that
Mhm.
is there for them to lean on rather than just being another adopted family member trying to figure it out as you go too without support. That's a challenge. I know a lot of home care owners struggle with that because they're trying to get caregivers placed and things like that. So, as you
Uh,
use a program like this, I've seen it give more confidence in caregivers,
yeah.
give more confidence in home care owners. I know there's home care owners out there now in their little markets that are influencers as a professional using almost word for word stuff that they've learned through Teepa Snow. And
Yeah.
I've seen echoes of other influencers too through them that they've adopted into their language. And it just gives them that ability to speak with better brand authority on the topic, but with the skills and the abilities and the consistent approaches that are taught, then the outcomes come. right? Because you can say as much as you want to say about the experience, but for a professional to have actual receipts, right, and
Yeah.
experiences behind them, to be able to share the stories and document the stories is a whole different game changer. And for a professional, you have that confidence moving into the next case. You have that confidence in the moment as well too, to approach that. And so I love the confidence you guys bring through Teepa Snow's programs to the professionals, because this is a vulnerable time for families
Oh,
and people with dementia, and
yeah.
they need someone that is there. I mean, we had one caregiver, and I've talked to her since. I appreciated her. I gave it some time, but I talked to her after my mom passed away. I said, look, I'm having a conversation with you directly, not your boss, not your manager. I'm not doing a Google review. I'm calling you. Um, I want you to know that I appreciate everything you did for your mom. There are two situations though where you added some stress to my dad. And one of them was when my dad asked a question and you openly stated, I've never done this before. I don't know. Right. Next time, because there will be a next time that you run into something you don't know and you haven't done. Next time you say, you know what, I want to make sure we have the right plan for your mom or your wife or whoever the fill in the blank is. Let me talk to my care team, and I'm going to come back to you tomorrow with a better plan.
Yep.
But don't say, I don't know. I've never done this before. Right. And having a program like this ahead, though,
Mhm.
inside where they're learning this and being trained on this ahead as much as possible will help in those moments not have that default, I don't know, the deer in the eyes from the caregivers too. Cause
Right.
like as a family member, I don't want to have deers in my eyes looking at another deers in the eyes moment. I want
Yeah.
to look at someone that could be like, I got this for you. Right.
Yep.
You know, let's pass off the baton. I got this.
Some confidence at some point.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
figure
And
this
so
out.
that wasn't the main caregiver for my mom for most of the time, but it was someone that in that moment we needed her. She wasn't there.
No,
So,
that
so
moment.
I gave her some grace knowing that the capacity, um, was lacking, but the compassion, everything she intended on doing for my mom, the support she gave my mom outside of that one moment outweighed that moment for me. But at the moment, it didn't outweigh it for my
Hand it
dad.
to your dad.
So
Yeah.
it did not outweigh it for my dad. And so, like that for the professionals, having something like this gives you that ability to not have those negatives, right? I could have been one of a handful of negative reviews because of that situation that the company could have had to battle and fight. And it probably happens all the time. But knowing that your caregiver, your nurse, whoever it is that you have in the home of your clients, those that you're caring for, those patients, knowing that they're skilled so they don't have those, flubbed up moments,
Yep.
right, is huge.
It is. Yeah, and it's interesting that you say this because when it comes to dementia care, when we're
Hmm.
talking about one human being interacting and trying to help and support another human being to do things that are at sometimes incredibly intimate,
Hmm.
right? The reality is the answer she gave is absolutely honest and truthful, and we don't want anybody to actually not tell the truth.
Yep.
But the funny thing about there is a like you said, there's a fine line between not knowing and knowing I've got a support team that can do it and help me make sure I'm able to be successful and being completely not confident, right?
Yeah.
So we found this out a very strange way. And when we were doing, and my background is actually as a public health professor. And so I met Teepa originally through a university where I was running an evaluation institute. And so we were evaluating PAC early
Mm.
on before there wasn't a lot of research on it. There was a few studies, but nothing big. And it's a program, right? It's a whole series of interventions. So that's really hard to go to evidence based for a program.
Yep.
PAC is there now, forward
Hey,
15
hey,
years.
Beth, real quick. You
Yeah.
said PAC a couple times. Can you share what the
Oh,
acronym is? Like
yeah.
what
It's like
it
the
is?
military, right? You got to say what
Yeah.
the PAC is positive approach to care. So we've got a couple different, like we've got Teepa Snow, and that's the
Mm.
woman who just really founded all of this content and figured it out as an occupational therapist. And then she created Positive Approach to Care, which is our education and advocacy organization. We also run a foundation called Snow Approach,
Yeah.
Teepa Snow Approach, where we actually demonstrate, co-teach with people living with dementia and have a community center. It's our demonstration site. So when we were looking at whether or not these techniques were helpful to people, staff members specifically, home care, long-term care, residential, one of the questions that we, of course, asked was after the training versus before, Where was your confidence? And one of the questions that was pretty common in public health at that point, we could, morph it around a little bit, but it was this idea, this concept, this question we would ask on a scale of 1 to 5. I am confident that I can get a person living with dementia to do what I need them to do most of the time. And here was an interesting outcome. Before they were trained, I got like 4.8, 4.9 out of 5. So absolutely, I mean, that's about as 100% as you get in research. You just don't get 100% in research. That's not real humanity. So I was looking at this going, boy, but it's so high. Like, it's kind of freakishly high. I mean, you can get, wow, okay. That sounded cocky to me because I've been on these units.
Mm-hmm.
After we did the training, after they started to recognize it isn't about me being hyper-focused on you and doing person-centered care. It's actually about us.
Mm-hmm.
It's relationship-based care. And when I talk about that, the difference becomes important. The program that we teach teaches us how it is you and I get connected. Because at the end of the day, when we're talking about hands-on care, the amount of connection we're going to have to help you feel safe enough that this person that she seems kind of nice, but I kind of feel like I just met her, because many of our dementias are dealing with memory loss. Some are not. How it is I help you know in every second, in everything I do, say, show, and help your brain feel from my brain is that we're going to do this together and nothing is without your permission.
Yep.
Because guess what? We're going to do really weird stuff. We're going to get in the shower. I'm going to remain clothed and you're not. This is strange. What I do as a human being, we teach that to help your brain know you're safe. This is weird, but you're safe. So when we were able to teach people these techniques, the finding we got was really hard to write up in a journal article because their confidence that they could get people living with dementia to do what they needed to do most of the time actually went down.
Wow.
It went down to about 4.5 on average. So it didn't go down like to 2 or 3, but it went down. And it was, even with the small end that we had, if you know anything about statistics, it wasn't very highly powered. And yet the statistical difference was so clean and so concrete and so like everybody went down a little bit that it was very well powered. So it was a real result we were seeing. So we followed up and asked them. And the things that they said to us is, well, I read the question this time and I was like, I can't get every person to do what I want them to do all the time. They're like a person. So in other words, they were letting go of this idea that I have the absolute right. Not only that, it is part of my ego. It's part of my success that I, Beth, as my paid caregiving role, can get you, Kevin, to do what I want you to do at all times. That's just not life.
Yeah.
And in fact, I actually have to respect the fact that you have autonomy and build that confidence that, do you need a shower? Well, we need a wash up at some point. Do you need it right now? And if I can't get you to do it now, how can I get you to? How can we figure this out together? And that's the piece that made me so excited about what's possible, because removed this idea that I am solely in charge of you. And we're talking about adult care. We're not talking about a child that I can pick up and do what I want, when I want. And if you've ever been a parent, you know that that's a fallacy as well.
Yeah, not without a fight, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, as we talked about the professionals and getting them that confidence and just that awareness, right? This is collectively is a companionship, is a partnership in action rather than a forced action. How have you seen that help the organizations with those professionals? Because I know stressors add to turnover. Home care all the way to home health has some of the highest turnover out there in any industry. Because they lack confidence, they lack skills, they have an environment that's frustrating. So with these organizations that are utilizing Teepa Snow, let's talk about the culture that's there, not just the culture with the caregivers and the nurses, but also with the community, because I feel like there's this inherent mission, core value seen with every business. How have you seen the snow approach and pack. We'll use that acronym now that everyone knows what it is, right? Have you seen this add to that positive culture where the organization has a little bit of added life to it in the
Yeah.
dementia care approach, so where it just adds that whole, I mean, keep referring to brand experience because that's what this is all about, really,
Yeah.
for me. But how has that built that up for these businesses, these organizations that you're working with?
I think you could see it at the front door. The minute I walk in, and if I walk in as a family member and I'm walking in with my husband, and I'm looking potentially for whether it's an office or whether it's the clinical setting or whether it is um your residential, whatever it is, when I walk in with my husband and I'm here as a new potential client and my husband is living with dementia, how that very first person greets both adults,
Hmm.
how everybody on the staff has the confidence to know that I can greet someone. And if they don't immediately respond in a pace that I was expecting, with the words I was expecting, with the eye contact that I was expecting, how it is that I can pause, use that as an assessment rather than a judgment on whether or not I did something right or wrong, starts to really show all of the people that we are hoping to serve, which is not just people living with dementia, but it's also families,
Mhm.
how it is that they are coming into a place where their person will be acknowledged as a human being, and so will I.
Mhm.
We can make unbelievable mistakes. And if we are honest and true, and also with a little bit of confidence that I did the best I could, and sometimes I didn't get the outcome I was hoping for, but I'm willing to have a conversation about it, that's the piece that really makes a difference. So when people have this training, they begin to just interact with more ease. They have the confidence to say, hey there, I can give a visual to you, Kevin, and
Mhm.
assess your eyes and your nod told me your cognitive speed at this point is pretty high. I can continue at the speed and the pace that I normally would, and you've got it.
Mhm.
How I then also turn to, let's say, your wife and change my pacing when I'm directly talking to her, but include you both, that's skill.
Mhm.
That's the culture change we start to see. And even better, when I go into bricks and mortar, let's say if I go to a hospice setting, and I've actually got families and residents that greet me as the outsider. And I'm talking now me as the consultant, me as the person working for Teepa Snow.
Mhm.
I'm actually going into someone's home and they say to me, well, hey there. And they have absolute confidence because no one has ever told them this is not your place. You are those people and we are the people that take care of people. We begin to eliminate this us versus them.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed with well, there's a lot of home care owners out there, and there's always new ones coming and going. Actually, unfortunately, with the way the business cycle goes,
Yeah.
but I don't know of a single one that hasn't come into this without some intent of conveying compassion,
Right.
right? And they're very compassionate. They come in and lead with that, and they have the feelings that they lead with that. However, it's the capacity and the confidence of systems and processes that you can tether yourself to that translates that confidence, that compassion to someone else, right? So
Yeah.
when you walk in with the right things, the right established setting, the right approach to these families that you're out there with, that translates.
It
But if
does.
you walk in and just have a compassionate conversation and it's all feels and it's all friendly, but without any real sense of resolve and sense of
Right.
promised outcomes for the future, you're it's just a good conversation. It's
Right.
not it's not lead to outcomes and results, and they're not giving any sense of that. One of the things I really appreciated, I know I shared the frustration I had with the caregiver at one moment, right?
Hmm.
But what I really appreciated was the assessor that came in to look at my mom. She came in and just like, all right, before anyone else does anything, Susan, let's have a conversation. Susan, let's go do this. Like she walked my mom through my mom's routines. She did some stuff with my mom, just kind of see where my mom was at, and then sat her back down and then had a conversation with all of us. Right. And it was just like she took command of a situation when I know that my dad was just begging to just like leap out of his seat and be like, here's everything I need, right? You know,
Yes.
and I need this support yesterday, right?
Yeah.
um,
Because
But
nobody
he
comes to you
wanted to
guys
just,
early.
yeah, he wanted to jump in and like finally he wanted to say a lot, right? He was very quiet up to that point in my mom's journey, but like she just came in with this confidence of I know this, I've done this over and over again. Here's how we start. Here's how we can go through it. She set us up with the expectations.
Yeah.
She actually set those expectations up before the visit, so I knew what was going to happen when she got
Nice.
there. But like she just came in and did it, and it gave us that sense and confidence from their organization that they've got it.
Yeah.
And most of the caregivers that came in, most of the time, right, came in with that as well too.
I bet.
And it just helped with that as an organization, give that confidence for the family and understand where they're at too. All right. So third wheel here, right? There's
Mhm.
4 wheels on this ride we're taking today, but the third one is the person with dementia.
Yeah.
Um, it gets really frustrating. You talked about it earlier with the professionals not having those expectations, right? With a family, I know from personal experience, there was expectation of remember me, mom or
Yeah.
wife or whoever. There's always that expectation of recognition. There's always expectation of, I know you know how to use the bathroom. You did it 2 hours ago. There's
Yeah.
always the expectation of you cooked for 40 years. Why can't you cook now? Right? We have these built-in memories and expectations of that person and who they are. And so how have you seen the snow approach pack? How have you seen that come in and help give that individual that's losing these abilities of the simplest things?
Yeah.
How do you give them that grace, that ability to exist with the sense of being still respected and loved by those around them through pack and in the snow approach? Have you seen that add to that
Oh,
value for that
God.
individual?
That's some of the most rewarding aspects of what we get to do. Most of the time, I'm training individuals, but a lot of my friends are living with dementia,
Mhm,
and we have something called a positive action starter. It's a series of language changes, little shifts that we make that changes the way and helps a brain that's dying use things like sequencing as that
mhm,
ability to sequence through all the steps, that executive control center, figure out I'm done with the task and be able to move on, right?
mhm,
As those abilities change, as my ability to come up with choices. Or worse yet, when you get like, let's give it a real concrete example. The last time you went into an American diner, how big was the menu that's also called a tome? How many pages on an American diner, the average, right? When you
Too
are
many.
Oh, it's insane, isn't it? Right? You're like,
5 minutes, 15 minutes later, I still don't know what I'm gonna eat.
you're still flipping through it because you're just kind of amazed at what else they could have on there, right?
Yeah.
It's such an American phenomenon.
Mhm,
The reality is that after you get over the fact that you have to flip through all the pages and then you start at the beginning, how is it you break down this task?
mhm,
Right? You kind of think, okay, I can't go through all these pages again, but do I want to be good and do soup and salad? Or am I looking for more of a sandwich? Or maybe the third option is, or something else, like an
mhm,
entree something. Okay, I think I'm going to go for a sandwich. Maybe avoid the fries. We'll see. So automatically, I've eliminated a whole bunch of choices just by flipping, looking for one word,
mhm,
sandwich. So in a positive action starter, we help changing brains to be able to do that. When I come to you, Kevin, and say, "Hey, Kevin, what do you want to drink for lunch?"
mhm.
Think about the complexity of that statement,
So there's a lot of
right?
options.
It's a lot of
Mhm,
options. It's, well, wait a minute, Beth, are you serious? Are you actually asking me because you're actually not physically in present with me? Wait, when is the last time I had something to drink? Well, I got my drink here. Was that done? Now is she asking me if she's going to get? It's actually a really complex
mhm.
statement.
Yeah.
So just like your brain has been able to do in the menu, we help people change that question up to say, "Hey, Kevin, pause.
Mhm,
I wait for you to acknowledge the fact that I'm talking to you and I'm looking for something. Are you coffee or tea guy?"
mhm,
I make those two choices and narrow it down. You may be able to come up with the fact that I offer two choices, a third one. Well, actually, I'm kind of a Diet Coke guy.
mhm,
Diet Coke. Suddenly, I'm changing the entire dynamic. You, in fact, don't actually have a sense
mhm.
of failure. I haven't put you in a situation where you are less likely to be able to, and in that moment of lucidity, recognize something to drink. I should be able to do this. I could normally do this. I know how to choose what I want to drink. And I have these moments of panic. I didn't mean to do that to you. I was
Yeah.
just trying to be helpful.
Yeah. What's
Those
the
are
name of the drink
skills.
again? I can't remember the name of the drink, right?
You
It's
got
all,
it. Now, is it
yep.
Coke or something else? I can actually begin to narrow it down for you, and you are always right, because guess what everybody has to the very end of their life? Their own opinion.
Yep.
So those are some of the concrete skills that I think really begin to help us connect as humans, no matter where my language abilities are, no matter what my frontal executive control center abilities are. That
Mhm.
that actually helps remind both of us that there's a reason and a purpose for us to be together and a reason for us to like each other.
Yeah. And I noticed with my mom, a lot of time it wasn't so much that we needed her to do something. It was that she felt the agency was being stripped from her. Right.
Mm.
So, well, I was taught as a parent, I learned a technique called love and logic where
Oh, yeah.
you gave options that you could live with as a parent. You never gave that option. You're like, why did I let them choose that? Right. But you give them options. Hey, mom. Hey, dad. Hey, whoever. Would you like to do this or this now? Do you want to watch a movie or do you want to draw in this book? You just try and do something to occupy their time or to move them in a direction that they need to go. Hey,
Yes.
today's the day you usually take a bath. Do you want to do that now or later? Not like, hey, stop watching your show, get up and go right now, like forcing them. Cause then you get like, I, I would say with my mom sometimes like it's an LBD rage moment, right? Lewy body dementia rage moment. It's a
Yeah.
Lewy body dementia fit
It's a
moment,
Lewy
right?
body brain.
Yeah, it's like it's not her, but she's gone into fight or flight. And so
Yeah.
having these approaches that give them that dignity, no matter how fractured their mind is, to try and open up channels where they can come to that decision rather than having it made for them still makes them feel like an adult.
Yeah.
Still, because they are. My mom was a 70-year-old toddler, right? In mental capacity, but she's had the knowledge that
She's
she's been
still
around a while. She knew she had made
an adult.
decisions for decades,
Yep.
and she's like, why are you taking decisions away from me?
Yeah. She's not
Right?
stupid. She's got dementia.
Yeah, right. And sometimes she would be like, "Why can't I think of this? Why am I so
Oh,
dumb?" You're not dumb. It's okay, Maya. So she had those too.
yes.
You're
Both
transitioning
sides.
into the family. This is a good transition point. There is a conversation we had with my mom and the care nurses that were coming in assessing, and as we were talking about all these options, from so many hours of a caregiver to home health to maybe we just take her over to the memory care place,
Right.
right? Because everything was on the table, and
Or
she
my
always wanted to fortunately be able to honor this for her. She wanted to pass away in the home that she raised all this in. I'm the only child that lived in any other home, and that was for like 7 months.
Oh,
But
wow.
for all of my life, for all of our, my most of my parents' life together, it was in this home, and she wanted to pass away there. But as we're talking about caregivers and everything coming in, and we had them there and they're talking, all of a sudden my mom just abruptly stops everyone. She's like, can I just say something? Because everyone had been kind of talking about her,
Yeah.
right, for a moment and her
Yeah.
situation. And she said, can I just say something? And I was like, sure. She's like, do I have a say in all of this? Like, what's my say? Right. And I paused her because she struggled to recognize my dad. And that was really hard. And we're moving on to the family and how you support family here through this approach. She struggled to recognize my dad a lot because my dad had transitioned to becoming a family caregiver. And it's a very different role when you're trying to push, and he's not skilled in this. So most of his push to get things done was the push, right? Like the family frustration push rather than the Teepa no approach push.
Yeah. Right.
The come along with me thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey mom, you know how sometimes you get really frustrated that you have caregiver Larry instead of husband Larry? She's like, yeah. Like sometimes this other Larry that's not my husband Larry is here.
Yeah.
Right. And she knew they were both Larry, just one was her husband that she loved and adored and would dote on and be affectionate towards. And the other Larry was, why is my husband Larry not here and this faker is here? Right. And so I said, you know how you want husband Larry around more often? She's like, yeah, that'd be great. And I was like, okay, so what we're talking about here today is husband Larry gets to be around more often. And instead of caregiver Larry, you've got caregivers that know home care, that know dementia, that can come in and they can help you out.
Yeah.
Would you like that? She's like, yes. Is that what we're talking about? I was like, yep, that's what we're talking about. She's like, I want that.
Exactly.
I want my husband back.
That's it.
Right. And that was her decision in this moment of probably about 10 minutes of everyone just talking about her symptoms and what she was dealing with and kind of checking out that she was even there. Cause it's hard. Sometimes you do. Like, that they're gone, and in half an hour, she didn't remember any of this conversation either. And that. And that's a hard thing sometimes, knowing that they're going to forget. You're just
And I
talking
just act that
about
way because it doesn't
you're
really matter
talking
anyway.
about them knowing they're going to forget.
Yeah.
And so with the family, because that's exactly what we did in that moment, we had to bring it back to her. How does the Snow approach support families? Because it is, again, because of my attachment to home care for the last decade, I kind of became that anchor for my family because I had Teepa Snow education coming at me and other influencer education coming at me. I had 70 home care owners throughout the country that deal with dementia that I had personal contact with and friendships with that would text me randomly some day of the week and say, how's your mom? What do you need? Let's
Yeah.
have a conversation. And I was being fueled, right? Um, so how does someone that doesn't have what I had gain through a home care agency that is using Snow approach
Yeah.
methods to provide that family relief, that much needed relief?
I mean, that just sums it up beautifully. I think probably the best person who ever said this is oft quoted Maya Angelou quote, which is I've learned that, people will forget what you said, but
Hmm.
people forget what you did, but people will remember how you made them feel. I think the quote is
Exactly.
something specific like, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece that we sometimes miss when it comes to dementia.
Hmm.
This idea that there are times that as a professional, as a family member, when the dementia becomes this big in my world, sometimes I need to be with you this much to remember that I love and respect you this much.
Yeah.
And by having support in this caregiving journey, because if you are lucky enough, and I do say that very specifically, if you are lucky enough to be with your person for a long period of time, and things are able to then also progress as they will, at some point you're going to need some support.
Yeah.
You too have a body and a brain and a family and a life to take care of as well as this part of you that also involves caregiving. And so having that caregiving, and this is not going to be a big leap for anybody. This is as a home care agency. I mean, you get into it for two reasons. One, the fame or the money, right?
Yep.
You get in it because you care about your families, you care about your clients, and you want them to have those moments where they can be husband.
Yeah.
And by being able to offer that opportunity to say, we're here so then you can be seen as, or have the relief, especially with Lewy body. Because
Yep.
there are times when you have this thing called imposter syndrome, that my Lewy brain tells me that you, Kevin, are still there, but some other alien has taken over your body and I don't like it. I don't know who you are, but you are not my Kevin. And what have you done with him?
Yep. That happened a lot with my mom, with my dad, especially. That's not Larry. It's an imposter. Yeah.
Because why would Larry be, and with all reality, setting aside even the Lewy brain,
Hmm.
the absurdity of what we are asked to do with another person, hopefully with them and not to them, with another
Hmm.
person who's living with brain change is things that no adult child or no spouse should ever have to do for their person that they love.
Yeah.
But it's also a sign of love. So how is it that you are, as a home care agency, able to offer the opportunity that we will be with you, all of you, so then we can be there to do those things when you're just done,
Hmm.
or when there's little things that you could have us do that then you can actually have time and the energy and the capacity as well as the relationship to just be son again. And I think
Yep.
that's the biggest sale, to be able to know that with confidence, my folks have the ability to help your mom get in the shower. Do they have those positive action starters? Hey,
Hmm.
I could use your help, rather than let me help you.
Yeah.
That autonomy. Those are our skills.
Yeah, because the person with the dementia is not aware that they've lost that ability. So now you're talking at them as though they're incompetent. Like
Some are.
yeah, like I mean, that was some days that
Yeah,
was the case with my mom. Others days it wasn't. It just depended.
totally.
And
Yep.
it could be a difference of 15 minutes,
Oh,
right?
completely. I mean, that's the crazy part about many of our dementias, especially the movement disorder ones.
Yep.
And then when we think about it, for on average, most people living with dementia, if you have, 10 people living with dementia, half of them will have zero idea that anything's wrong. I'm
Yep.
fine. I can drive just fine. And
Yep.
mom, you've had 3 accidents in the past week.
Yeah.
No awareness. The other half, throughout the majority of the disease, I'm aware that something's not quite right.
Yep.
And I will either hide because I can't let you see it,
Yep.
where I will suck onto you as my protector. Where are you going? Where are you going? Can I
Mhm.
go with you? Hey, listen, are you going to go in the room? Well, I can just stand outside of the bathroom.
Yep.
That home care can be that support. So then you even have a moment to breathe.
Well, and even just outside of the 4 hours to 8 hours that the caregiver's in the home or 24/7 care eventually, like having just that tap out where the husband can just go off and do errands or actually take a shower without having to worry about the escape artist,
Oh,
right?
yes.
That happened a few times, personal experience, right?
Yes.
So how do you, like, as a caregiver, you can help with that transition on to care is coming in and off of care so that family member feels like when you're gone, they're equipped. So as much as we talked about the professionals being skilled and equipped here, having a snow approach program in there actually also equips the family because you're giving the family the abilities and the skills and the things they need to know, and hopefully invite them to maybe a course or two or some groups and communities that you build as an agency doing these things to where they don't feel like they've been abandoned by you when you leave at the end of shift.
Yes.
And now they feel confident that they're there. And as a caregiver, as a home care business, the last thing you want to do is have a reset when you leave to where everything you did for 4 to 8 hours is undone when you leave. Right. And so for the family, having not just someone to come provide that relief, the home care industry calls it respite, but I'm telling you,
Yeah.
no one outside of the home care world knows what that word means. They
Nope.
know the outcomes of respite, but they don't know the word, right? Outside of that, having a family feel like, hey, they're settled down, they're calmed down, the hard things are taken care of. Now the rest of the day is just maintenance, dealing with sundowning, dealing with this stuff after we leave. But here's how you can do it. Here's watch me, model me. Like I know I came in way more equipped than my dad, but I know as we had caregiving in the home, my dad became more and more confident as well too, and he became
Mm.
less burdened by it as well. And he's a
Yeah.
contractor by trade. This is not his world, but having just the ability to model what he saw over time gave him that confidence as well too. But it's all
And
about
being able to see somebody else
consistency.
do it, getting ideas and tips and
Yeah. It's all about consistency and
yep.
something to model. So having, a program like this also supports the families, also gives them that as well too, because they feel so lost in this. They are, I've told people this after my mom passed away. There's been some people, like people mourn differently, but I've mourned my mom for a long time as parts of
Yes.
her disappeared,
Changed and died.
right?
Yeah.
And for 3 years with Lewy body dementia, 2.5 years diagnosed by the doctors, 3 years diagnosed by me. But for 3 years, we actively as a family watched parts of my mom disappear until she was all gone, right? And so we're dealing with progressive mourning as well as this villain that's taken over our person that we love. At days it
Where we
becomes a
bring
villain,
sometimes.
right?
Yep.
It's the villain in our story sometimes. And still trying to deal with that compassionately. And we're lost. Like the family's lost in that. And they love the person and they want to feel loved by the person, but that's not always there every single
Yeah.
day to have that. And so having this gives families something to lean on to look
Mhm.
to hold on to around that person and be reminded more and more that their best way of continuing to love that person isn't going to be in the same ways that they've experienced for all those years up to that
No.
moment. It has to be done. It has to adjust as well too.
Yeah.
And
No
I love
doubt.
how your program addresses that. I love how, you help those families become equipped through the care training that you provide these agencies that go in and provide that care. It just gives so much to those families. And it's hard to call it
Yeah.
respite. It's hard to even call it relief. There's so much to it that
Yes.
goes around that it's just a huge weight that gets lifted, and that's the experience that I can talk
Yeah.
about right now. Like for the caregivers that came in, if people ask me about it, I could talk about those experiences where they lifted, and that's what helps that brand now have a positive. Because I don't talk about the what's. I don't talk about the daily routines. I don't talk about all the stuff. What I talk about is my dad and the change in him after care came in. I talk about my mom and the reduced anxiety and stress that she had as she dealt with her own demons
Mm.
going through this as well too. Because someone with confidence, something to hold on to, something to do, routines, all those things coming in,
Yeah.
provided all of that for us.
And I think one of the hardest things that for families is this idea that I finally get something that's working. I finally get to a place where I think I got this. And as a truth in all 220 different form types and causes of dementia, it's all going to change. And
Yeah.
that is another truth of dementia with a progressive chronic illness that we know is terminal. And I think that, when we have somebody who has, as an agency, been through the journey, they know what's happening, that confidence allows families to be in that moment, right? So when I think about this, but it's also the job of the agency to recognize what is the need of the family at that moment.
Hmm.
And being able to help our staff understand that is a critical piece of this. So let me give you a concrete example. My husband was amazing with his father. He even said that dementia, this is, after he passed away, he said that, it's funny because he still wouldn't wish dementia on anybody, but
Yeah.
dementia allowed him the opportunity to strip away the title of son and father
Hmm.
and all the hurts and the failures and the expectations that may or may not have been matched in life. And it was just two men getting to know
Hmm.
each other and being with each other. And so I was so incredibly impressed with his ability to live in the moment and enjoy what abilities that his father had wherever they were. Until one time I noticed it had been almost literally 2 weeks since maybe not 2 weeks, maybe about a solid week, that since my husband had actually gone to the nursing home and visited his dad. And this was completely unlike him. And so I thought, wow, what's going on? And so I asked him, and I'll never forget it. It was just the dumbest move I'd ever made. And he was sitting there making a sandwich. So his eyes were down. And I said, so tell me a little bit about, why you haven't gone to see your dad lately. I was just really surprised. And he paused when he was doing it, kind of put his sandwich down, and he said, I recognize he's changing, and we've got a whole nother set of skills that are no longer, and I'm just, kind of struggling. And I'm like, oh, I've got a solution. Let me help. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, oh, and looking back now, such an idiot. And I said, but so you've always engaged with this. Well, let's try this. And then this, and I'm shoving all these ideas at him
Hmm.
stupidly.
Yeah.
And he really paused at this moment and completely set the knife down, set the sandwich down, everything, and put it back. And I'd never forget this. He looked down at this table and he said, Beth, I need you to stop because right now I am grieving. And when I take that moment, I will be able to figure out what it is I need to do with him and be there with him. And I was
Yeah.
like, we can be so helpful with ideas. We see the person where they're at because it's not, at the end of the day, it was my father-in-law, but it
Hmm.
wasn't my father.
Yeah.
So how we can see what the family's needs are in the moment, it's such a critically wonderful aspect to brain change as all of us as family members go through those brain changes of grief cycles. How we as a home care agency can recognize what the unmet need of the family is at that moment and help them then get to that next place where they can be back with their loved one and finding more moments of joy.
Yeah.
That is such a rewarding part of what we do.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's really what at the end of the day makes a home care, home health, home hospice business successful is providing those families that I mean, that's what you wanted to do. When you set up to start this business, you didn't just set it out to have a really hard industry to be a part of. You set it out to make a difference in the lives of families.
Right.
And having the right approach, coming in, giving those families that tap out when they need the tap out, giving them the arm embrace when they need that to help pull them through this journey with their loved one, that's all part of it. And,
Yeah.
and so again, like looking at, putting a cap on Teepa Stone, everything that I see that comes through it, it helps businesses more confidently, more consistently deliver those experiences that become part of that core and identity of who that business is as a
You
brand
got it.
and the overall impact in the community, which every home care owner I know and I've talked to wants to have a positive impact in their community and be known for being able to be part of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's where it comes down to when you talk about this idea of what it's going to take to differentiate my business from other home care agencies. It really does come down to skills.
Hmm.
We can talk and have a heart, and we can truly care about everyone. But if I don't have the skills to know how the human body goes from a sit to a stand, if I don't know how the brain changing can be affected differentially by the language that's retained and what phrases I can use and how I practice those, education for drilling for skill with our staff members is truly the differentiator. And we look at the research, it tells us again and again, whether it's nursing homes, whether it's hospital staff, whether it is home care, or whether it's hospice, no matter what it is, our staff are crying out for skill-based training. And that's what they will tell us again and again every decade when they redo that research. I don't want to know about what's lost. I want to know about what it is I can do differently to maybe get a better outcome, because I'm already here because I care. I can make the same amount of money going down the street and flipping burgers.
Yep. Yeah. A lot easier.
Yeah, my burger doesn't throw his stuff at me when I get done with it.
Yeah. Doesn't get mad, doesn't disagree with
Doesn't
me.
get mad, doesn't yell at me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Beth, really appreciate your time on this. It's such an important topic, and it's something that's impacting more and more families. When you look at the stats and the data out there, there's more veins of different types of cognitive decline that people are experiencing as well that may not be called any kind of dementia. And it's all part of what home care businesses are in the trenches with the families. And so I really appreciate, your added value to this, the things you've contributed to that. If someone is looking for adding to their business, adding to their training, adding to their capacity as a business, what are some ways that they can reach out to you, reach out to your team? What's that process like?
Probably the easiest way is to go to teepasnow.com. And that is Teepa as in like Teepa, snow, the stuff that falls from the sky.com. You can also email us at info@teepasnow.com. The nice thing about it is don't be scared to reach out. We do half-hour free consults and help you figure out, no matter whether you've got $0 or, because all of us are here because we've got hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, that no matter where you are in that price point, we do have resources for you that you can use to upskill your staff.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it. And for those of you trying to continue to grow and develop your brand, your business, keep tuned in to this Great to Connect podcast series. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify. And if you have questions, I'm going to post this up on different social media. If you have questions, you want to reach out through the comments to Beth, she'll be tagged in those. You can reach out to her that way too. I'll have the description, including the URL and ways to get a hold of Teepa Snow and their team. And just continue, not just focus on the compassion side, but look at the ways that your compassion can be magnified through abilities and skills that add to the capacity of your team, add to the impact and the value that you bring as home care business. Awesome. All right.
Thanks, Kevin.
Oh my goodness. Great topic.